Hello guys, we are back with another video and today we are going to continue our book Thea Stilton and the American Dream. In my last video, I have read till chapter 10. So let's begin with chapter 11 today. I have a very special notice for you friends that I will tell at the end of the video. So keep watching. If you want any specific book, you can comment down below. Chapter 11, A Terrible Loss. Did you see Ali's message? Paulina asked when the sisters and the ratlets met up outside the motel. Yes, Colette replied. We just texted her back saying that we are going over to meet her. Where is she? Violet asked. In the RV, Pam explained. She was unpacking her things in her motel room when she started looking through her bag furiously. Then she asked for the keys to the camper and scampered off without another squeak. The Thea sisters hurried toward the RV and climbed aboard. They found Ali sitting on the floor, her head in her paws. I looked everywhere, she sighed, distraught. The flash drive is gone. But that's impossible, Nikki exclaimed. You had it in your computer bag this morning. We all saw it. It isn't there anymore, Ali explained. And it's not in my backpack either. I looked through all my pockets and it hasn't turned up. After what happened to my laptop, I should have made another copy of all the documents, but I kept putting it off. This time, it's entirely my fault. Pamela tried to reassure her desperate friend. Don't blame yourself, Pamela squeaked gently. This could have happened to anyone. It's not your fault. We'll help you look for it, Colette added. If it's here, we'll find it. The Thea sisters had no intention of giving up. They searched the RV from top to bottom, but they had no luck. Okay, the flash drive isn't here, Paulina finally admitted. But let's not lose hope. Ali, do you remember when you saw it last? Ali thought about it for a moment. It was this morning while I was looking for my sunglasses, she replied. Of course, I remember too, Colette said, nodding. You took everything out of your bag and placed everything on the steps. In the rush to get to Cadillac Ranch, maybe you left it on the steps? Violet suggested, but Pamela had another thought. Wait, she exclaimed. Remember Andrew, the little mouse who was outside the motel? He was thought that the flash drive was a toy. Maybe if you left it behind by mistake, he found it and took it thinking you didn't want it. But it sounded like he and his family were leaving the motel. Phil pointed out. They're probably long gone by now. True, but that doesn't mean they can't help us, Paulina said, a mysterious smile on her snout. Without another word, she scampered out of the RV. Phil was right, Paulina explained later. Andrew and his family did leave their room this morning. I explained the situation to the receptionist. She took a look around and the flash drive isn't on the steps, but she is going to try to get in touch with them and give them a phone number. Hopefully, they'll give me a call and let us know if they have the flash drive. That seemed to give Ali some hope. She began pacing back and forth nervously along the length of the camper until Paulina's phone rang. It must be them, Paulina squeaked hopefully. It's a video call. Moments later, Andrew's mom appeared on the screen. I'm sorry, I don't have any good news, she said right away. We left right after meeting you, so it seems unlikely that Andrew took the flash drive. But we searched through the car and the luggage anyway, just to be sure. We didn't find it. I wanted to find it so I could play with it, added the little mouse. Then he held up his stuffed animal and added, I'm sorry you lost your unicorn. If you want, I'll let you play with mine. Thank you, Ali replied, trying hard to smile at the sweet gesture. You are very thoughtful. Once Ali said goodbye to the little mouse and his mother, she could no longer hold back her tears. She turned and ran out of the RV. A clue! Ali's flash drive was in her shoulder bag when she arrived at the motel, but now it's gone. Where could it have been gone? Chapter 12, A Big Decision. May we come in? Colette asked as she stood at the door to the motel room. Of course, this is your room too, Ali replied softly as she continued to fold the clothes that had scattered when she had emptied her backpack in search of the flash drive. I also tidy up when I need to think, Violet said as she entered the room with the other Thea sisters. Cleaning helps me clear my head. Oh, but I don't need to think about anything, Ali replied. I have already made up my mind. She began placing her folded clothes into her backpack. The Thea sisters looked puzzled. I have decided to go back to Detroit, Ali finally explained as she continued to pack her bag. I'm leaving tonight. You want to go home? Pam exclaimed. But why? Why should I stay? Ali asked, her voice shaky. That flash drive contained a year's work. Now I have lost all my work. And most of all, I lost the chance to present my video game at Level Up. After that outburst, the Thea sisters remained silent as they watched their friend pack. How could they make Ali feel better after such a huge disappointment? It wouldn't be that easy, but maybe they could convince her that they were there for her at such a difficult time. We can only imagine how sad you must feel, Paulina finally said as she approached Ali. But we think if you go home now, it will make you feel even worse. Finish out the trip with us. That's true, Nikki added. Stay with us together. We will see beautiful places, and when you get home, you'll be full of energy. You'll be able to get back to work with more enthusiasm. Ali sighed deeply and sat down on the bed. I don't know if I'll ever be able to recreate my video game, she explained. Who said you have to remake the same game? Colette asked as she sat down next to the mouse and put her paw around Ali's shoulders. Maybe you'll think of a whole new one, an even better one. That's right, Pam joked. You could use this trip as inspiration, and maybe we'll be the main characters in your new creation. Finally, Ali laughed. Actually, that's not a bad idea, the mouselet replied, smiling. Then you have to finish the trip with us, Violet insisted. That way, you can collect a ton of material. Ali gave her friends a grateful look and finally accepted. Okay, you have convinced me, she squeaked. I'll stay. After helping Ali unpack her things, Paulina, Nikki and Violet said goodnight to the others and went to their room, tired from their excited day. They were just outside the door to their room when they heard two voices they recognized. It was Phil and Jerry. The pair was hidden in the dark around the corner of the building and they were squeaking in whispers. Don't worry, Phil was saying. Nobody will know. All right, but make sure you keep your mouth shut, Jerry replied. We have to make sure Ali doesn't find out. A second later, a door squeaked open and then closed softly. In the silence that followed, the three friends exchanged an alarmed look. What was going on? Another clue. What were Phil and Jerry secretly talking about? Why didn't they want to make Ali suspicious? Chapter 13. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Paulina, Nikki and Violet immediately wanted to tell the other Thea sisters what they had overheard, but they didn't want to upset Ali all over again. The mouselet thought their new friend had had enough excitement for one day, and they decided to wait until the next morning to share their news. You're right, Colette agreed the next morning when her friends filled her in. That is really strange. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Pamela asked. She and the other Thea sisters were gathered outside the motel. Yes, I think so, Violet said, a serious look on her snout. It seems Phil and Jerry are afraid we'll find out about something they did. And the only thing I can think of is that they have something to do with the attack on Ali's computer and the missing flash drive. They certainly have the skills to hack a computer, Nikki pointed out, and they have had plenty of opportunities to nab the flash drive, Violet added. But why would they do that? Maybe they didn't want to go up against Ali in the level of competition, Paulina guessed. Remember when we first met them in St. Louis? They weren't very friendly at first. Maybe they are afraid Ali's project could beat theirs. Well, it's one possibility, Colette agreed. But we need proof. We can't just blame them if we aren't sure. You're right, Coco, Paulina agreed. It's still possible the flash drive simply got lost when Ali went through her bag. We'd better keep an eye on Phil and Jerry, Pam concluded. Ready to go? Ali asked as Benji, Phil and Jerry approached the Thea sisters. We're so ready, Pamela replied. Then she turned to whisper something softly to Violet. I think I have an idea. Pamela walked over to Benji and jingled the keys to the RV. Hey Benji, didn't you say you would love to drive an RV? She asked. Still interested? Really? Benji asked in surprise. Of course, Pam agreed, smiling. I'm happy to drive your car for a while. A few minutes later, Phil and Jerry settled themselves in the back seat of Benji's car. Pamela got behind the wheel and Paulina climbed into the front passenger seat next to her friend. She was going to use this opportunity to find out more about Phil and Jerry. The group set off and soon they crossed the border into New Mexico. As the greenery outside the car window began to change into the patches of dry red earth, Paulina sighed deeply. I feel so sorry for Ali, she lamented. First the hacker attacked and then her flash drive disappears. What terrible luck. As she spoke, Paulina glanced in the rearview mirror. She immediately caught Phil and Jerry exchanging a worried, uncomfortable look in the back seat. Yeah, Phil said quietly. It's too bad, Jerry added. It takes a very experienced hacker to break into someone's computer, doesn't it? Pamela asked. I don't understand much about it, but she wasn't able to finish her sentence because Phil interrupted her. Oh, look, he exclaimed suddenly. We are about to enter Santa Rosa. I'll ask the others if they want to stop at the Blue Hole. Phil and Jerry texted with the mice in the RV, and the group pulled off the road in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and headed to the famous Blue Hole. The swimming hole shimmered in the middle of the dry desert. Phil and Jerry didn't want to talk about Ali at all. Paulina told Colette, Nikki and Violet as they gazed out at the clear, cool water. Well, we still have a long trip ahead of us, Colette pointed out as she glanced over at Phil and Jerry, who were swimming alongside Ali and Benji. There will be other chances to find out if our suspicions are correct. A clue. Phil and Jerry were uncomfortable and changed the subject to avoid talking about what happened to Ali. Chapter 14. Mystery in Santa Fe. After everyone had a chance to swim in the sparkling waters of the Blue Hole, the group got back on the road and continued their journey north. The heat gave way to cooler breezes and a landscape of red earth and new expanses of green. They had arrived in Santa Fe, the capital of the state of New Mexico. Without losing sight of Phil and Jerry, the Thea sisters set out to explore the city, which was so different from those they had seen on their trip. What a lovely place, Violet exclaimed as they arrived at the plaza, the city's central square. The space was crowded with tourists visiting the small shops, restaurants, and jewelry stalls that lined the streets. Look at these beautiful buildings, Ali exclaimed, pointing at the Adobe-style architecture, which was so different from the tall skyscrapers they had seen in Chicago. And the sky is so blue. This would make a picture-perfect postcard. Will you wait for me here while I grab my camera from the RV? I have to take a picture of... But Phil interrupted before Ali could finish her sentence. I'll go, he exclaimed hastily. Come with me, Jerry. Huh? His friend asked in surprise. Let's get Ali's camera for her from the RV. Phil repeated, staring hard at his friend. Oh, right, Jerry finally replied. Yeah, we'd be happy to. But there's no need, Ali reassured them. I can go get it myself. No, Phil said hurriedly. We'll go. I left something in the car too. Come on, Jerry. With that, Phil took the keys to both the vehicles and rushed off with his friend. The Thea sisters continued strolling past the shops and art galleries along with Ali and Benji. It's official. Those two are definitely hiding something, Nikki whispered to the other Thea sisters. Violet nodded. They jumped at the chance to get into the RV without us. She agreed quietly. Do you think they have a plan? Pamela whispered in a worried voice. I don't know, but I think we should find out. Paulina replied softly. How do we follow them without Ali and Benji noticing? Leave it to me, Colette squeaked, winking at her friends. Then she raised her voice so Ali and Benji could hear. Hey guys, I'm just going back to dash back cover to the first stall we saw. We have to get one of those lovely terracotta balls. Do you want us to come with you? Benji asked. No, Colette replied. Keep on walking. I'll catch up with all of you in a little while. Colette whirled around and headed back in the direction they had just come from. But instead of stopping at the stall with the terracotta balls, she went to the parking lot. First, Colette made sure Jerry and Phil weren't near their car. Then she scampered quietly up to the RV and peeked in the window. Phil and Jerry were sitting at the table, tinkering with Ali's laptop. Colette gasped, and Phil and Jerry seemed to sense her presence because they both glanced up and saw her snout at the window. Colette ducked down, but it was too late. Colette, wait! Jerry called out as he poked his head out of the RV. Clue. What are Phil and Jerry doing with Ali's computer? Chapter 15. Phil and Jerry's jail. Phil quickly followed his friend out of the RV. Then they rushed over to Colette. Please don't tell Ali that we took her computer, Phil said quickly. We wanted to surprise her, Jerry added. But we couldn't fix it. Colette was squeakless. Surprise her? She asked. Yes, Phil explained as he walked back towards the RV. We wanted to find the files for Ali's game and get them back on her computer. Then Ali could have presented her game at the level up competition. Colette was shocked and she still had questions. But if that's true, why sneak around? Colette asked. Phil and Jerry looked at each other and sighed. Because we weren't sure if we would be able to do it. And we also didn't want to look like we were showing off and acting like we know more about computers than Ali does, Phil added seriously. She's an amazing computer programmer, you know. The two mice went on to admit that they initially hadn't been very excited to meet Ali. Benji had told us so much about how talented Ali is, Phil explained. She's an excellent programmer, Jerry added. so we were nervous about going up against her at level up. Colette smiled. Yes, the rest of us noticed that you weren't very warm when we first met you guys, Colette said. But once we got to know Ali, everything changed, Jerry said sheepishly. That little bit of jealousy we felt toward Ali turned to great respect. We really were just trying to help, Phil explained. After all that's happened the last few days, we were hoping to give Ali a chance to present her game. But once we got on her computer, we realized that it was going to be impossible to restore her files. We tried to do it many different ways, but none of them worked. Jerry admitted, his snout full of disappointment. It's true, Phil added with a sigh. Whoever hacked Ali's laptop was very skilled. Now that Colette knew the truth, she, Phil and Jerry returned to the rest of the group. When they arrived in Albuquerque later that night, Colette filled in the other Thea sisters. Phil and Jerry had not been to blame for the attack on Ali's computer. The hacker and the location of the missing flash drive were still a mystery. All 5 friends agreed that Jerry and Phil should tell Ali about how they tried to help. That way, there would be no more secrets between them. You're awesome! Ali exclaimed later at dinner as she leaned over to hug the 2 mice. Well, it would have been more awesome if we had been able to fix it, Phil said sadly. You've already done so much, Ali assured them. It was so thoughtful of you to try, wasn't it, Benji? Of course, her friend agreed with a small smile, but he looked troubled. Excuse me, Benji mumbled as he got up suddenly. I'll be right back. The mouse scampered to the counter of the restaurant and sat there with his nose buried in one of the menus. He did seem to notice that Paulina had watched him leave the table and was now studying him carefully. Paulina had noticed that during Phil and Jerry's jail, Benji had kept his eyes down, barely looking at any of them. It was always seemed to Paulina that Benji had become flustered and upset when he heard that Phil and Jerry hadn't been able to fix Ali's computer. Paulina knew it wasn't the right time to share her thoughts with the other Thea sisters, but she would tell them as soon as she had the chance. Clue. Why did Benji seem upset when he found that Phil and Jerry were trying to Ali with her computer? Help Ali. Okay, only this much for today, friends. I had a lovely time reading to you. What is a specific book? Comment down below. So, the special announcement I had was that when I reach 500 subscribers, I'll reveal my face.